This is Shelby, and today I'm taking over the podcast for Rick. Who believes in ghosts? Because I grew up in a haunted home, so I certainly do. Comment down below and let me know if you grew up in a haunted home as well. Today we're focusing on the Halifax Ghost Walk, and I actually went to this with Rick. Now, the walk itself, unless you actually see something, it's not that scary. It's very informative. They show you buildings that have had haunted history. They show you locations that have had haunted history. When we were on the ghost tour, we did a walk. We went to a cemetery. We seen the Titanic victims. We seen the graves. We also seen a building where a little boy is supposed to look out the window, which we do think on the walk that we did see something. And so it was super interesting. We also took a tour of the Alexander Keith's beer company, which was also very interesting because you go right down underground where the horse and buggy would have went and brought all the stock in. Now for us, that's where things got fucky. So you start at Citadel Hill and they give you a little blurb on kind of what you're going to see for the night. So that's where we began our journey. And I'm getting panicked just talking about it, just because it was a really scary time for us. Something definitely followed us home. So the moment we got home, nothing was really going on in Rick's apartment. We sat down on the couch, we watched a movie, and then we decided to go to bed. That's when things started to get really scary. So it started off with us smelling like a burn smell. So it smelled like it was coming from like the kitchen to the bathroom area. So we kept going back and forth, trying to find the smell. And we're like, this is definitely like a farm smell. This is a burn smell. Where is this coming from? At the time, we weren't even cluing in that we were at Alexander Keith's. And they said about the horse and buggy coming down into the basement. So we went back to bed. And this is where things got really, really scary for us. I was smelling something burning, and I kept telling him that. And of course, I'm afraid of fire. So I brought it to his attention, and he said, fine, I'll get up and go look. He went out into the living room, and he was looking around for the smell. And then the fire alarm started going off. Well, what was going on in the apartment? But our thermostat went on fire. Now, these thermostats had just been replaced. They just went to the apartment building and fixed them and put brand new thermostats in. So we couldn't believe that this was going on. And all we could think of was we went to the ghost tour. So the thermostat was smoking. We took it off the wall. And then he had to call the apartment building manager the next day to get it replaced. And we were just in total disbelief. Now, Rick used to be a total skeptic way back when, before he started dating me, of course, because he's seen things and heard things in my house, my family home. So he knew that there was paranormal entities out there in this world. But he just couldn't believe what was going on in his apartment building, and then it got worse. So Rick's quiet apartment building was now turning upside down, and we started hearing things in his apartment. So we were hearing things move when we were in another room, and he didn't know what it might be. So he thought, okay, well, maybe it's the cats, and we debunked that. So I said, why don't you set up a recording device and we'll put it there for the night with like a ghost box and see if we get anything. So we did. We kept the cats in our room all night so that we would know that it wasn't them. The apartment was empty other than us being in the bedroom, and we set up the ghost box on top of, he had a little island in his kitchen, and we set it there and we caught something. At first, we didn't hear anything on the audio at all. And then it was about 4 to 5 in the morning. The chair in the kitchen slid across the floor and then slid back in. And we knew exactly what it was because there was nothing else in that area that could move and go back in. So Rick's a skeptic, but he started calling me in the middle of the night one night. And he said, I feel like something is standing over me in my room right now. So he was afraid, but whatever. The next day he was going to come up to my house, so he wasn't really worried about it. So fast forward, he came up to my family home. And of course, he knows there was paranormal activity my whole life that I've lived there. But we seen something different. We had the kitchen light on, but we had the dimmed light on just so we could get up in the middle of the night when we were watching our movie and we could go to the kitchen and get something to eat. So we left that light on. Long story short, we seen a man in a top hat, very tall, standing in the porch. And with that, what do you think that we smelled? We smelled that horse smell all over again. And with that, Rick wasn't skeptic anymore because he had seen, smelled, like he knew for sure that there was another entity in the house other than us. So he had a friend at the time, and the friend was like, well, I can come into your house and I can cleanse it. So he thought, great, take him into the apartment and we'll cleanse it. I didn't see any more of the top hat guy in our house, like my house. So Rick knew that he had to do something to his house because the entity was following him around. So we did that. And I must say, for a while, things got worse. And they always say that if you go to cleanse your house, if it's not done properly, things will get worse. And it did. So stupid us, we decided to use a spirit box again. And I don't know why we did that, but we did. Now, there had been some history. I don't want to go into detail because there were some lives lost, but there was some history at the apartment building where people were actually killed and they lost their life. So I don't know if this might have been a spirit that was connected to that or not, but we did have a spirit come through on the spirit box and it was quite creepy. It was so long ago, I can't remember everything. But I remember that this entity said that their name was Michael. He also said that he was in the drain, which I think meant that he was in the downstairs apartment because this apartment building had many floors. The other thing he said is that he was shot. And then he had mentioned the garbage. So we're thinking that maybe he was shot behind the garbage bin. There was big garbage bins at the apartment building and it just broke our heart. So yeah. So from that moment on, we told him that we were really sorry what happened to him and that he could be at peace now, and we stopped the spirit box. We never used it again. And fortunately, we actually had no contact with any entities at his apartment after that. I don't know if the Michael thing was random or if maybe this is what happened to this top hat guy that followed us home from the ghost walk. But it is scary as shit. Now, for anyone asking if we would go again, personally, for us, no. Asking if we would recommend it, absolutely, because it is an experience that you don't want to miss. A lot of people went with ghost devices to try to communicate with ghosts while we were on the walk. So, I mean, it's all up to you. Whatever you like to do. If that's up your alley, then we highly recommend it. One more thing that I want to get into while we're doing this podcast is the 5 fishermen. Now, I went there with my mom and my dad when I went down for an appointment one time. And we didn't know any history at that point. You might have seen the pictures rolling through while I'm talking on the podcast. It was near the beginning, but that is the 5 Fishermen restaurant in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So I went to Halifax with my parents And after my appointment, we were going to a comedy fest. So we decided to go eat on the harbor front. And the one place that was there was the Five Fishermen. That's the first place that we seen when we left our hotel. So we said, okay, we're going. So we went there. We were the only ones there at the time, which was a little eerie. We sat down. I had a beautiful salmon meal. My dad got fish and chips. He always gets fish and chips. Loved it. We loved our meal. It was great. So then my mom had to go to the washroom and I had to go to the washroom. So we decided to go together. So I went down to the washroom. It was really quiet, of course. Nobody there other than the workers. So I'm washing my hands. I hear the stall door open and close, and I heard a lady's voice. Nobody is in there with us, and it wasn't my mom. The woman's voice sounded deeper, and like I said, the door opened. We heard it creak, we heard it shut, and I heard that woman's voice the whole time that we were in there. So I thought that somebody was in there with their child and they were talking to them. But then when nobody came out of the door and there was no one in the stall, I'm like, oh my God, what is this? So then fast forward, we go to the ghost walk together, me and Rick, and they told us all about the Five Fishermen and the history of it and why it's connected to the Titanic. So bodies from victims from the Titanic were brought to the Five Fishermen and used as a morgue. It's right on the waterfront, and there's a lot of space in that building, so that's what it was used for at that time. Before it held the victims of the Titanic, it was a schoolhouse at one point. If you look it up on their website, they actually have a breakdown of everything and all the disasters that they were involved in, including the Halifax explosion. And they also have hauntings listed of people that had worked there and had experiences at the Five Fishermen. So you can look that up on their website. Just a few experiences is seeing apparitions, hearing taps turn on and off, and even aggressive ghosts taking their aggression out on people that have worked there. They also believe that there's a captain that haunts the building. He's been seen in things such as mirrors. If you also go on the ghost walk, you will see St. Paul's Church, which is listed above in this picture. In one of the windows of the church, you can actually see a silhouette of a victim from the Halifax explosion, which I'm not going to list it here and I'm not going to show a picture, but to me was the scariest part of the whole tour. So for me, I've always, not to say I'm psychic, but I've always picked up on things, energy, ghosts, and to me this was the saddest part of my tour, and I actually felt so uncomfortable and so drained after being at this church, just given the history and the feelings that I was getting from this place. Now, on a side note, I will mention the cemetery. Now, we didn't bring any ghost devices with us. Of course, we didn't have anything to bring with us. But this guy was using his phone and another device, and he actually picked up on voices that they believed to be a captain that was running one of the ships that was coming in and out of the harbor. There was a lot of tragedy over the years, and in a 100-year period, and even before that, of tragedy on the waterfront, so it doesn't totally surprise me that this ghost tour, comes with its surprises for sure. The ghost tour is very terrifying for sure, and I recommend it to anyone who is interested in these things, but like I said, beware and use caution. I also recommend that if you really want to get into the ghost walk, to bring some type of ghost device with you to connect, because it brings you together as a group and you can really feed off that. And it's really interesting to see people coming along with ghost devices and making contact with spirit. And according to the website that I found, it actually runs from May to October. So if you can get in before it closes for the year, I would definitely do that. Anyway, it's a nice little walk. You definitely get the experience out of it, and you learn about historical places that maybe you've never learned about before. Anyway, guys, that's it for me today. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.